I can't really remember how it all started, but it was when I was very young. I never knew how to explain it to anyone, or if what I was experiencing was even real. Many times I tried to bring myself to ask for help, or to share my story, in hopes that someone may understand. But I could never quite get the words out when I started to speak, filled with an overwhelming sense of fear and anxiety, as if something was stopping me from trying to escape the nightmare. The nights would always start the same, dreary, cold, and alone. The earliest point of memory is staring out my window after school with the fall wind blowing and the dark clouds continuing further and further throughout the sky. As night fell and I would lay my head down to sleep, I would feel like I was drowning, not with water, but with fear. Always I would feel like it, or they, were watching me from the darkness of the room. With every peak of the light of the moon crossing my window, the shadows would appear, but also scatter with human-like movements around the room. Out of breath and sweating, the hours would pass on, and as I would almost fall asleep from exhaustion, bang! Another sound. A fence flying open, a shed door creaking, wolves, if that's what was there, howling from the distance. The shadows would continue to stare at me with a soul-piercing gaze. Sadly, even in sleep I could not escape the terror. When the exhaustion caught up, my body would finally fall into a slumber. My eyes would open back up, but the dark room I remember was now lit up. Not bright, with warmth and light, but dim and red. All around me was silence. No more wind blowing, no more window slamming, and no more shadows. Until I hear whispers, but not quiet, soft messages, rather deep, ominous, and terrifying speech. Goosebumps arise all over my arms, and I shiver inside as on the outside I try to move to run out of the room, but I can't. My body is stuck, frozen under the covers, and I try with all my might to move, but it's hopeless. The room begins to get darker. Not darker like less light, but a deeper, darker red. If I can't move, maybe I can scream for help. Surely someone would be able to hear my cry for help before whatever is happening becomes worse. Sadly, this too ends in failure. I try with all my might to produce any sound I can from my mouth, but only silence comes out. My little body is immobile, and my screams for help go unheard. The shadows start to appear from the corner, slowly moving from the bottom to the top of the room. I can see from the corner of my eye they are getting closer. The whispers become louder, and I knew that whatever was here now did not have good intentions. I felt my feet and legs begin to be grabbed, and slowly my body was being forcefully pulled to the edge of the bed and into the darkness below. Trying to fight for my life, I could still not move, and I gave up fighting and finally fell, only to awake screaming and covered in sweat. Fear like that is hard to explain, as you were so helpless as a kid, and no one is there to save you. Sadly, these events didn't stop and continue on to this day as an adult. Reading similar experiences, the only thing that has helped or stopped these events from happening was screaming the name of Jesus as loud and as hard as I could. I wasn't a Christian at the time, but oddly this did work on many occasions, but the events never stopped happening completely. I still feel like I'm being watched often, and feel like the shadows are there, waiting for the time when I am weak, depressed, and anxious. I find it hard to sleep knowing that whatever was occurring in my nightmares may show itself again. But with hearing other people's similar experiences as I got older and sharing my story, I have a better understanding of the supernatural and believe I can't be crazy. There has to be truth to these experiences happening. Anyways, I know my truth, and that's all that matters. Maybe one day I'll be strong enough to fight the shadows and end this battle for good, in fear that this would be passed down to my kids.